So George, you've been bit twice by the king cobra.
Yes, when we started out back in our early days, I want to say it was 1977. I can't remember exactly right now which year it was, but we were working out in the exhibit, and I got bitten by a king cobra. And so, of course, the first thing I did was the one rule that the one rule I disobeyed, which was, you're supposed to stay cool and calm and don't run. And I started running, and my friend Jack Vicente was out there with me, and I heard him, don't run, and I stopped, and we got the anti-venom, and we rushed in. We were probably in the St. Cloud Hospital emergency room in less than 15 minutes. And it was on a Sunday morning about 8 o'clock when this happened. When we got in the emergency room, there weren't any doctors, but there were 3 nurses in there, fantastic nurses, and they got busy and mixed up the anti-venom, and I think we were into the 4th hour, and we knew everything was going to be okay.
It's got to be hard. I mean, you obviously don't panic, don't run. You just got bit by a deadly snake.
I know, that was never going to happen, right? And so anyway, it was, I think I was in there like 3 days, a lot of swelling and all. But the king cobra venom, especially the Thai king cobra venom, doesn't really cause any tissue damage. So we weren't concerned about that. We were just concerned about, getting the neurotoxin and neutralized.
Second time?
And then the second time, 20 years later, it was 20 years later. And we had been, I think, a little over 10 years without an accident here, and we were up here working in here. We had 11 king cobras that we had raised up, and we had been on a collecting trip, and so the snakes had been, we got everything good, and then we left. When we got back, we were going through everything rather quickly to get everybody fed and watered and get everything back on track. And the king cobra came out and went up to the window, turned around, came back in a feeding response, and got my left arm and bit me, which I imagine was probably I think 4 times before he let go. It was very fast. I mean, it was just lightning speed. He just got it, and he did a little fang walk up the arm, and he dropped down on the floor. And
so this is the arm he bit right here?
Yes, it's the arm he bit right there. And the thing was, I was unconscious for the first 3 days, and we ended up with in a situation when we got into the emergency room. It was not like it was back in 1977. Little St. Cloud Community Hospital become this big Orlando Regional Medical Center, and I'm sure it's confusing to a doctor. You probably, he was from an outfit in Orlando, and the emergency physicians of Orlando believe it was. But anyway. Not really familiar, king cobra bite, and so I think it took him by surprise. But there was a fiasco. I was unconscious. It was a venom that I was allergic to by then, and I had to shoot epinephrine, and I was out for 3 days. But there was a big battle about anti-venom, and there was surgery involved. Which, if you're ever in a snake bite situation, don't avoid the blade. I'll put it that way.
You came very close to dying.
I probably did, I mean, there was so much going on. There were so many different people, doctors involved. They put me on a helicopter, flew me to Orlando for surgery, which was, the thing you want to do in a venomous snake bite is keep the person supported where he is and get the anti-venom to the person. When you start transporting a person to the anti-venom, you're putting at risk the person, and you're doing. The most important thing is to get that anti-venom in there and get it going. And it's a lot easier to get the anti-venom to the person than the person to the anti-venom.
The scarring on your arm, is that a result of the bite?
It's a result mainly of the surgery. The first bite I had, which it was the same thing, I had huge swelling. I swelled to the side of my head and down my leg. But after 4 or 5 days, after it was over, everything went back to normal. But doctors, when they see that, they get overly concerned about blood, the circulation being compromised and that kind of thing. So I think that was the purpose of the cutting, but it resulted in some damage, and which is really not necessary in a snake bite. But a lot of doctors are, my feeling is if you're in the emergency room in Florida, you should be really well versed on snake bite, because at some point you're going to have a small child come in with a big diamondback bite, and there's really no time to get out the book. You have to jump on that right away.
How, in the scope of venomous snakes, how venomous is the king cobra?
Very. They probably consistently produce more volume-wise, possibly than any other species. And the snake that bit me at that time was capable of like a 10 milliliter release, which is a huge amount of venom. He was our best venom producer of all things. We had 11 big king cobras on the line that day, and it was next to the last one. We had done We had done 9, and I think it was number 10.
So if you're going to get bit, you might as well get bit by the best.
Well, okay. I wouldn't exactly. The best policy is don't get bit. That's been our policy. We've always tried to, maintain safety procedures that avoid that. But the problem turns out to be we're human. I think anytime human beings get involved in a dangerous endeavor and it's something that they're doing in a repetitious manner, things can go wrong.
The common theme for both of the times you were bit, you put yourself in proximity to the snake. It's not a matter of you didn't realize the snake was there. You intentionally...
Oh, no, I knew exactly what was happening in that snake. Normally when a king cobra rushes you, and my all experiences up to that moment were to just be still, use a hook to stop the snake. But that was the first time I got rushed by a king cobra in a feeding response, and I didn't recognize it right then. And that's one thing. When we work with these snakes in this room, almost all of these snakes have been raised here from babies. They're used to being fed, on tongs or fed by people. And so often when you open one of these trays, if they're hungry, they're gonna, they're coming out to get something to eat. And it's a whole different ballgame. When a snake is in a feeding mode, they're in a kill mode, and their reflexes and everything are functioning to the max, especially when you have high temperatures. And that bite that I had, that last one, it was the first day of summer. It was June 21st, and I think it was 89 degrees in the snake room here. So that snake was functioning. He was.
What kind of
his physiology was tuned in.
When obviously you're bit, but what kind of pain do you feel when a king cobra bites you?
That particular one, the very first one, I remember the pain. I remember the pain when I was in the. Jack was driving me to the hospital. It was very deep. It was a very excruciating pain.
Like your arm's on fire?
In this case, I didn't even register pain. It was so, when it happened, it was a day, it was like, you're having a day where you don't really have time for anything to go wrong, and all of a sudden the worst thing possible goes wrong. And I think for the first few seconds, I went into like sci-fi mode. I was trying to rerun this in my head. This didn't happen, can't have it today. And then, of course, it did, and I had to react quickly because I had to get epinephrine quickly. I was allergic to the venom. But we did everything right here. We got in there fast. We got in there with the antivenom, handed it to the physicians, but they were confused about whether they should use it or not, and things got very complicated. But I slept through most of that. I didn't find out really what happened until I woke up 3 days later.
Is it a burning sensation, or what does it feel like when it's...
The king cobra bite, the first one, it was a very deep pain. I got bit almost in the same place, and it was a very deep pain. But in most cases, the initial pain is right there, right there at the surface right at the bite area. And but yeah, venomous snake bites are painful. So are wasp sting, but you can magnify that many-fold. When you get a shot of venom from a snake, you're getting, with an insect bite, you're getting maybe a couple hundred micrograms or so. But with a snake, you can get many milligrams.
Very lethal, very quick.
Very lethal, very quick, and well, not, most snake bites, for example, in the United States here, statistically, if you can get into a medical facility and get a good antivenom regimen during the first 3 to 4 hours, you're probably going to come out pretty good. But that antivenom regimen is critical. You need a doctor that's going to be aggressive with the antivenom.